Hello, and welcome back to our series, Women in E-Mobility, Accelerating Women. I am Dr. Shelley Francis, co-founder and managing partner here at EV Noir. EV Noir's work centers on electric, connected, shared, and autonomous vehicle technology. We focus on two areas of work: e-mobility best practices and e-mobility diversity, equity, and inclusion. Now, during this series, we'll talk with leaders working across the e-mobility ecosystem. We focus on engaging women leaders. Our conversations center on their career trajectories, how they got started working in the electrification sector, and what it's like working in this field. And also, of course, we cover emerging issues and trends. So currently, we're in the middle of a huge shift in how we conceive, power, and innovate in our sector, driven by awareness of climate impacts and economic opportunity. So there's no better time than now to just dive in. And today's session is brought to you by the team at EV Noir. Now, we're excited to talk to our guest today. Her name is Chandra Farley, and Chandra currently serves as the Chief Sustainability Officer for the City of Atlanta, where she leads the Mayor's Office of Sustainability and Resiliency. So, Chandra, welcome. We're excited to have you join us today, and welcome to the Women in E-Mobility series.
Thanks so much for having me, Dr. Shelley. It's good to see you again. Always excited to talk with you.
Well, I'm excited. I know we're going to have a great conversation today. So let's just dive right in. So, Chandra, I know you have had an impressive career path. You know, prior to joining the city, you ran for a political office. You served as a director at the Partnership for Southern Equity. You also founded an energy justice consulting firm, as well as the Good Energy Project, which is a social space connecting the transformational power of Black women and their community leadership to the movement for clean energy. Now, before we talk about your journey to the sustainability space, tell us about your current role. What's a typical day look like, knowing that, of course, no day is typical?
Definitely no day is typical at City Hall. Every day is different. When you're working at the scale of a major metropolitan city like City of Atlanta, but working in that scale, impacts our metro region, and also impacts our state. So there is a lot of intentional coordination required internally, across our departments, and externally with partners like EV Noir. So there are a lot of meetings, a lot of great conversations, strategic conversations internally across departments. Our mayor's office of sustainability and resilience, it's an executive office of the mayor. So we set policies, plans, and targets and develop pilots. But all of that gets operationalized through our operating department. So there's like over 20 operating departments at City of Atlanta. Those are things like Department of Watershed Management, Parks and Recreation, Transportation, Public Works, and the airport. Department of Aviation is a City of Atlanta department, the airport. So a lot of intentional coordination across the departments and the over 20 mayor's offices. But also in partnership with our regional planning partners like Atlanta Regional Commission, and even statewide. We have a Georgia Local Governments Coalition, includes us, City of Decatur, DeKalb County, Athens, Savannah, and others. So though there's a lot of that every day, talking, and then a lot of fun things too. I get to staff the mayor at various events, particularly when they are related to sustainability and resilience, or I have to serve as his surrogate a lot of times. He gets a lot of requests to appear at a lot of things. So when it is related to directly or indirectly related to our work around sustainability or resilience at the city, I serve in his stead. So always exciting things going on.
It sounds like there is never a dull moment, and there are a lot of exciting things happening, coming to the forefront in the city. So, before we get deeper into the conversation or get to the heart of the conversation today, Let's chat a little bit more about your journey. So tell us how your career path evolved. I just ran through a snippet of your wonderful bio. Obviously, have been very successful in the clean energy and the sustainability space. So just tell us more about that. And was working in sustainability always your plan?
Definitely not. It is. I think a lot of people in this space, that we know, have definitely had a non-linear path. But I feel like my rooting, before I knew what sustainability was, I was somehow connected to the land, to resources. I grew up in the country in a small town in Tennessee, and I was raised by my grandparents. So they remember not being able to vote. They went to segregated schools. So we were very connected in our community, in our church community, our extended family. So everything I have done has always been rooted in centering people. What is the impact on communities? How do you work with communities? And so my background's actually in building. So I went to architecture school. I practiced interior design, focused on building design and construction for about a decade. And when the housing market crashed, my job disappeared. And that was tough times, for a lot of people. And at that time, sustainability, particularly around green building, healthy building practices, was just really becoming more mainstream. And our family business was a restaurant. And so even back then, uh, my great grandparents had a garden, and whatever they were growing in the garden is sometimes what showed up on the menu at the restaurant. Well, we didn't call it farm to table then. It's just you grow the food, you eat the food, right? So, and one of my first jobs as early as 8 or 9 years old was following the waitresses around and scraping the food off into big buckets. And our cousins that had a farm would come and pick those up, and they use that to feed the animals, right? So I didn't know it was composting, but just this whole idea of the full life cycle of systems, circular economy, if you will, farm to table, sustainability. These practices were really rooted and ingrained in me from way before I had the language for it. So I ended up at South-Based Energy Institute, thanks to the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, after that housing market crash. And that was really where I was able to connect a lot of that lived experience to my love of buildings and buildings efficiency. And then the rooting in environmental justice. I went through the EPA's Environmental Justice Academy, and that really set me off on the path that led me to where I am today.
That's amazing. I just love how it's kind of like a puzzle, like every experience that you have starting at a really formative age has really shaped how you have evolved in terms of your career path. And I just think about when you talked about your grandparents, made me think about my grandparents, and they did the same thing. They had a small farm, sort of, but they had livestock, and so we would take the waste food, your leftover food that you didn't eat, and you would put it to compost, or you would give it to the animals. And
Yeah.
just thinking about other ways that you had a garden, you would share what you had with your neighbors would share it with you. Sustainability in terms of thinking about lighting in the home, like they would tell you, if you're going out of one room, turn off the
Light off. Yeah. Yeah.
close the
Shut that
refrigerator,
door.
don't
You're
stand
letting
in
my
front of the
air out, right?
refrigerator.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's really fascinating how either these different lived experiences, in the back of your mind, kind of really shape how we think and operate in our careers. And you never would think that, okay, well, these finite experiences that I had growing up would have such a huge impact in where we are today. So that's really exciting. One of the, as I shared earlier, our organization works on electric connected, shared, and autonomous mobility. And so in working with utilities, auto manufacturers, charging network companies, cities, of course, like the city of Atlanta, transit authorities, ride share and delivery network companies. It's really interesting to hear about what the different cities' priorities or different partners' priorities in terms of where their decarbonization efforts are focused on. So I'll shift a little bit and talk more about what it's like to be a woman, particularly a diverse woman working in this industry. And so, of course, increasing diversity in this sector is critically important because, for one thing, communities of color are disproportionately impacted by transportation emissions. So that's one key thing that we know. We know also when we look at data around children and childhood asthma and respiratory problems, Hispanic and African American children are more likely to die from a respiratory ailment as compared to their white counterparts. In thinking about workforce and economic development opportunities, we know from recent studies that women make over 3/4 or over 75% of household and vehicle purchase decisions, but we only make up about a third of the employees in the automobile industry. And so that tracks well with a study that was facilitated by Evie Noir that found that Black women in particularly feel excluded in public facing initiatives while also desiring to see more women in leadership roles working in the field. So there's a lot of work ahead of us in terms of, being more inclusive and really amplifying these different diverse voices. But with that being said, let's talk a little bit more about your experience being a woman in this space, and particularly, what does it mean to be a woman of color in the emerging electric vehicle, industry?
Yeah, so lots of start data, if depending on how we're looking at it from across the clean energy sector, right? I mean,
Mhm,
from transportation to energy, which is where I've really centered my work. And we look at the solar industry,
mhm,
80% male, 90% white, these kinds of things. So, uh, and I feel like a lot of this is rooted in, these very traditional professions that have just
mhm,
been male dominated historically. Automotive work, construction trades,
mhm,
electrical work. So there's a lot of work to do, and exposure is everything, right? So when people see you, when young girls see you, or talk to me, or many of the other women that we know that are leading in this space, and seeing is believing, to use a cliche. And I just think that's so important. The more we can do to show younger women, or even mid-career women who
mhm,
might be looking to shift into this new industrial age, that we're transitioning into last now, and that there's so much opportunity, and not just opportunity for new career, but opportunity for careers that I feel like are really aligned with the kinds of needs that women need from a sector or a job.
mhm,
Flexibility, um, flexible hours, particularly when we're talking about the entrepreneurship opportunities,
mhm.
the need and advocacy for people with real lived experience and stories, that it's a really exciting time. And the more that we think about the opportunities in the clean energy transition really holistically, right? Like, yeah, making the car, but we need communications people, we need accounting people, we need project managers. I think we have to do a better job of talking about the full spectrum of opportunities that exist when we talk about the clean energy transition, and the opportunities in the EV sector.
I love that, Chandra. There are, I mean, we still, just because we're focused on this innovative technology doesn't mean that we still need the CPAs and we need the bookkeepers and
Yeah.
we need the IT specialists and we need graphic design artists.
Yeah.
And, you know, and the beauty of, I think, this industry is that there's enough room at the table for folks from all different backgrounds, from rural communities, from urban communities, from folks graduating and coming out of high school, or you have a GED and you worked in other spaces. You want to transition, as you said, mid-career professionals. So there's opportunities to engage at all different levels. You don't just have to be an engineer or have a 4-year degree. You can come out of a GED program or high school and get training. So I just think there is so many opportunities, and we definitely need to be intentional in terms of like communicating just the breadth and the depth of what's available in the electrification sector, particularly here in Georgia, where we have $30 billion plus of investment in this sector. So I want to ask you another question around just thinking about different initiatives and how we might be able to better train up women and others to give them the opportunity to be competitive in this space. So based on like your experiences and things that you've seen, what initiatives and trainings would help women, and particularly diverse women as well, have a more even playing field in terms of working in this clean energy and clean transportation sector? Are there successful things that you've seen?
So again, I think it goes back to exposure and creating intentional safe spaces for us, or brave spaces. As my friend and many of us know, Dr. Erica Holloman Hill, who does this work, I think about Tanya Hicks,
Mhm.
who is with her She Do Everything platform, and creating a space for women to come together to learn about electrification and
Mhm.
what that means. Or Crystal Perceau, who created like Voltage Vixens, I think she called it, a space to, just for us to come together and learn about things. Because again, with technology, I mean, again, we can look at some of the really stark numbers when we talk about STEM, careers. That is, no different in this clean energy transition space. So we just have to be really intentional about, using those examples of like, Tanya or Crystal and so many others, of just space to come together and talk and learn. Or it's still very much in the visioning stage. As
Mhm.
during COVID, when I started thinking about the Good Energy Project, and really just wanting to expose like my friends who are not in the sustainability space or clean energy space, and they want to talk to me about recycle, for parties. I'm like, well, what are we going to do about recycling? That's my job. But bringing like, my girlfriends and,
Mhm.
their friends together to talk about things like utility bills and the Public Service Commission. And hey, if you're looking at an EV, look at EV Noir, in the
Mhm.
Facebook group. So I
Mhm.
think those kinds of social spaces are really important, just to start socializing what we're
Mhm.
talking about, and that it's not so scary. It's not mechanical engineering all the time.
No, I think that's so important. That just having that sense of community and that there's a space that you can go to and talk about these different issues. It really helps normalize the conversation, but it and demystifies like what this is all about. And I know that, of course, in my experience, and possibly with you too, that having like incredible mentors, and both mentors and allies, have been really helpful in terms of helping to kind of just navigate career things, and even the e-mobility or the electrification and probably sustainability space too. One of the things that we have noticed and were intentional in terms of our work and leadership in this space is that as we were navigating electrification and e-mobility, we saw the opportunity to develop programs that would help train young people for career paths in e-mobility. So we started a K through 12 STEAM and STEM program. And then we also founded the e-mobility fellowship program a couple years ago. And so for those who are not familiar with that program, it's a 9-month curriculum plus an internship that targets college students, and not just college students, but it's students in trade, technical schools, community colleges, historically Black colleges and universities, Hispanic serving institution and trade and tribal and indigenous populations, and veterans. And the idea is that we need leaders from all of those different communities, all of those different expertises and lived experiences to really help make our programs more inclusive and more effective. And so we're one of those things that we're really excited about in terms of that program is it allows the participants to see all sectors of the electrification sector, and it builds community because they're able to talk with the faculty who are experts in their space and mobility. So it really gives them a chance to see folks who are doing some of the things that may be of interest to them. Just like we were saying, it's like you got to see it to believe it. You need to normalize this conversation and just kind of learn, like, hey, like the path isn't linear. You can take twists and turns to get to the same location. And so it's ultimately it's all about creating a space where women, from diverse backgrounds, from different communities and different perspectives, can really lend their expertise because we need it. And we know when women are involved, we're going to get some things done.
That's right.
So I want to shift and do like our little fun segment part. So this part of the show is where we do our little segment. It's called 5 Fun Facts. We get to know you a little bit better. And so it's 5 questions. So here's the first question. So when you step away from your work life and your sustainability hat, what's your favorite place to vacation if you have 3 options? Is it the beach? Is it the city or the mountains?
Anywhere that's not where I'm at. So I am.
That's the first time I've had that response, so that's a good one.
I am equal opportunity. It just depends. It just depends.
Okay.
I don't think I've spent as much time in like the mountains as I would like to. But yeah, it just depends. I'm
Okay.
open to it all.
Anywhere away from here, so that's good. Alrighty. Okay. So my next question is: as a frequent traveler, what's your best travel hack or travel tip?
Well packed and well organized carry on
Okay.
with good access to the plugs, like your electronic cords.
Yes. Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely. You don't want to be caught on 4% battery
that's right.
on
That's
any of
right.
your devices.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So next question is: when you're traveling, what's the one thing that you won't leave home without?
Definitely those charging the devices because sometimes I forget them, and I have certainly paid $1 million for a charging cord at a hotel or an
Right.
airport. So trying to do better with that well packed backpack or carry on to make sure I have those things. But yeah, other than I travel pretty light, so other
Okay.
than that, yeah, I think that's one.
No, that is really important. I hear that theme there. So that is definitely something to pay attention to. All right. So 2 more questions. The next one is: what are you reading right now? Like, do you have a favorite novel, book, or other item that you're reading right now?
Oh my gosh. So this is so funny.
Mhm.
My stack of books got
Mhm.
really high during COVID. So I was, I was definitely ordering a lot of books.
Mhm.
But one of the last ones that I bought that I'm still I'll talk about 2 things. One is Angela Davis's Freedom
Mhm.
is a Constant Struggle.
Okay.
Um, I really enjoyed that because it's a compilation of like a lot of her um, talks and speeches. So I was able to, it's not one of those things you have to read all the way through like in one sitting or a week or however, like it takes you to read. I could like read a speech and then think about it and come back. So I really enjoyed that. And then Amanda Gorman, I think if I'm getting her book of poetry that came out after her inaugural speech, "Call Us What We Carry," is something that I return to.
Mhm. Okay, very inspiring, inspirational, uplifting work. All right. Now, the last fun fact questions is what form of mobility or transportation did you last use? So the examples are like, rideshare, e-bike, personal vehicle, light rail, other examples.
So my last trip was walking.
Okay.
So
All right.
uh, yeah, but I'm very fortunate to live in Midtown, which is a really walkable area. And I went 10 years without a vehicle in Atlanta. So
That is
people are always
impressive.
surprised by that. But I have an electric vehicle now. So my last long trip yesterday running errands was in an electric vehicle.
Okay, great. And I love how you walk what talk the walk the talk, both at the highest level with Mayor Dinkins having a electric vehicle, and then also you have an
Yeah.
electric vehicle. So it's just going from the top down through the organization, which is awesome. So, okay, so we have learned a little bit more about you and gotten some good travel tips. But before we wrap up our conversation today, I want to circle back to something that we just talked about a little while ago. And so we were talking about, building that community, getting more women engaged, and obviously giving them more exposure. Can you talk about the importance of mentors and mentorship that you've had along the way in terms of like what words of wisdom did they directly pass on to you that has made an impact in your success?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that one, I have definitely benefited from uh, women that I considered
Mhm.
mentors who told me that they consider me their mentor. And so just think over the last few years, having the idea, sort of more traditional idea of what a mentor looks like, being really flipped for me was really important. There are a lot of younger women working in this space who I consider mentors now, who are thinking about things in a different way. So I think that has been one of the most important things for me to think about when I think about mentorship. I think a lot of times we think about it as someone older, you
Yes.
know, who's been through a lot of things. And I certainly have some really incredible women in my life for who work in the space, who don't work in the space, as mentors. And then again, some younger women, coming up who are doing really incredible work that that I learned from. I will say Dr. Mildred McLean
Mhm.
is someone that environmental justice, almost 50 years, doing environmental justice work, uh, community building work, community organizing, who is that constant reminder about why we are doing what we're doing, and
Mhm.
that everything that we must do has to have people at the center as we're making decisions, has been really important for me over the last few years. And my parents,
Mhm.
both of them. I've got some great male mentors,
Mhm.
as well as women. So I think that it's important that we understand, like any relationship,
Mhm.
you're going to have different people who can give you different advice on different things, and that you talk to about different things. And so having a well-rounded support system,
Mhm.
I think, is key to effective mentorship.
I love that. I remember reading somewhere that in terms of thinking about mentorship and support, it's almost like you need to have your own board. So you have
Yes, yes.
this person has provides expertise on, maybe navigating this area of your work, and this person provides guidance on like maybe wellness and kind of staying grounded, and then you have another person who provides the like legal guidance, but just having folks from different backgrounds different backgrounds, different male, female perspective to just be like your board, board of success. I guess so. Just another way to kind of look at it. And that made me, when you said that, it made me reflect on that particular analogy that I had heard before. I think
Yeah,
that's
your own personal kitchen cabinet.
yes,
But I love
exactly.
success. I love that. Start using
Yes,
that.
I would say so. If you had, given the wonderful words of wisdom that you shared with us, what would be like if you had to give young women in particular one word or piece of advice in terms of like if they're interested in working in the sustainability field or clean energy, clean transportation, what's like one piece of advice that you would leave with them as that nugget?
Follow your heart,
Mhm.
and that's going to change wherever it's leading you in a moment, because that is going to help guide you towards opportunity. Just taking every opportunity to kind of investigate whether you like something or not. It's
Mhm.
like, oh, I did this volunteer thing, or I took this internship, or I took this entry level job, or all of those different things are going to help you um, lean in on learning what you like, what you don't like, what you really are passionate about, and not to uh feel like that maybe those opportunities are always going to be worded like a very specific thing, right? You might look at a position that it may not be a sustainability position. We're in a really different time now from when I was coming up. There's all kinds of names and terms and things like that you can dive into these days, but don't miss an opportunity to bring your passion to a place where you think it is needed, where it may not be present, which gives you a real opportunity to be creative and innovative and build something from the ground up that you can then take to continue to build your own career path.
Wow, that's just powerful, like the mic drop. Oh man, that is really wonderful. I love that, and that's one of the things that when we were thinking about the show and the series, and that's the type of insight that we really want to bring to the audience and to those who are watching, and so we are so appreciative that you were able to give us some of your time today. And of course, I know you have a busy schedule. And so we're going to wrap things up so that you can get back to the good work at the city. We really appreciate you sharing your wisdom today and joining us for an episode of Women in E-Mobility. So thank you, Chandra, for talking with us and our viewers more about your experiences and your wonderful insight.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I really appreciate you and appreciate EV Noir and the partnership. It's so important. And yeah, I look forward to doing more work together.
Likewise, we're really excited to all the wonderful things that the city is doing, and we're grateful to have, a small part in that role. So I wanted to again tell the audience, so this was Chandra Farley. She was the Chief Sustainability Officer at the City of Atlanta. We're so fortunate to have her with us today. So thank you again for joining us, Chandra. Thank you to our viewers for tuning in, and thank you to the team at EV Noir for supporting this series. And please stay tuned and check out other sessions of the Women in E-Mobility series. And also, one additional thing is always stay tuned and check us out on our social media so that you can stay abreast of all of the things that EV Noir and our partners are doing. So thank you again. And on behalf of myself, Dr. Shelley Francis, we will see you next time and to chat more about women in the e-mobility. So take care.